Hello, ContainerDays. Thank you very much for having me in this heat. My name is Ronna, and I've been the chapter lead of Women Who Go Berlin for the past 2 years now. And to those who don't know, Women Who Go, it's a global organization dedicated to increase the participation of women in the Go community. Can everybody hear me properly? I'm seeing faces. Should I adjust the microphone? What does the soundman say? Everything's fine? Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm an engineer, actually, and I love people, opinions, and data to the level of addiction. So this evening, that feels like the middle of the day, I'm going to talk about diversity in tech and how we can truly achieve it once and for all, if we wanted to. Because I want to move the discussion on the topic to a more productive conversation. So naturally, before giving this talk, I checked to see what kind of impact I can expect from my own call to action. So according to science, only 10% of you are likely to take action after hearing my talk. So to those 10%, thank you. To the remaining 90%, I made that number up, so you have no excuse. Also, don't listen to anyone who says according to science. So most of my talk will be centered around information about the underrepresentation of women in tech. I'd love to be able to talk about other groups as well, LGBTQIA, people of color with disabilities, etc. But sadly, there's just not enough concrete information about the realities that they face, and I hope that changes in the future. And I hope that some of the things that I say today are going to serve them as well. So on a side note, I want to point out something that I think is not addressed enough in this conversation. Diversity is not equality. Diversity is not equality, so if we talk about diversity without referring to equality, we're turning it into a semi-Orwellian terminology that basically postpones us from having to deal with certain impacts of the choices that we make. And that is not what I advocate for. So why do I do what I do? During my 16 years of engineering, I reported to a woman exactly once for a few months in 2004. So it's been 15 years. And as I become more and more senior, it is likely to never happen for me again, unless I go work for a very large corporate and get lucky. So that makes me wonder, where the glass ceiling is. So first, it's very depressing in a graph. So this is the graph of my non-direct male managers. So the glass ceiling, back to the glass ceiling. Is the glass ceiling at tech lead, team lead, the most junior leadership positions in tech? So it turns out the glass ceiling is even lower than that. According to HackerRank's women's report from 2018, women are by far likelier to be in junior positions than men. Women are statistically stuck as a gender in junior positions. Some are truly stuck as juniors, are not trained, not promoted, or promoted very slowly. Combined with a very serious retention problem where women across all levels are constantly leaving tech. So, in fact, according to a recent survey held by Indeed from last November, the leading reasons for women to leave tech were lack of career growth, poor management, slow salary growth, lack of challenge, if you believe that, and lack of work-life balance. Work-life balance, by the way, made it to the 14th percent. So it wasn't the leading reason, despite what people seem to think. So I'm going to have you look at this list for a little bit, because we can do something about every item on it. Okay, enough. So according to another research from 2013, 50% of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, are likely to leave their fields within 12 years. So I went and checked the original paper that they cited at the NCWIT And it turns out that the data is based only on women with full 4 years college degrees. So basically, the group we expected to sort of do better. So that was, depressing as well. And don't ask me how, but it gets worse. Because when you read the original paper, it turns out that there are some hidden gems in there. Like, for instance, this one, that women with advanced degrees in STEM are 166% more likely to leave their fields. So merit and talent have nothing to do with this? Now, I can share countless stories to explain this or how we got to this point, but I want to focus instead today on one message. That, like you, I'm in the business of solving problems. I am an engineer. And I know that this is one that we can solve. It's what I do for a living, people maybe. So we can solve it using the same methodologies that we use to solve everything else. It's simple to understand, it's simple to break down. We can experiment and monitor our progress, basically. So what's really stopping us as troubleshooters from doing this? So we're in a conference dedicated to containers, and those are typically associated with isolation, safety, reliability, and security. And that makes me wonder why our apps deserve a safe space, but our underrepresented groups don't. And what would happen if we decided to take those problems seriously as we take our code? So let's define the problem. Women leave tech constantly while we're pursuing engineers. So whose problem is it? Let's start with that. It's very normal to leave these issues to people like me, who sort of care, the ideologists, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But I argue that it's our problem as a community, because as every business sort of takes care of its own, but in conferences like this, we come together as a community to figure out what we're going to do next with the next problems or the next challenges. So we are paying recruiters a fortune when there's probably available talent. We are paying, and also diversity is reported to increase individual growth and improve the success of the business. And we're definitely not benefiting from that. While we have very, very non-diverse workspaces. So what do we do? So how do we know that there's talent? Well, besides the research that I just cited that shows that women with higher education are dropping out at a very high rate. If you take people of color, women, LGBTQA, etc., everybody, and add them all up, it's the vast majority of the population. Of course, there is talent that we're not seeing and we're not using. So now that we understand the problem, let's fix it. So what would happen if we decided to create a Trello card for diversity and add it to our tasks? Simple as that. What would that card look like? And the reason I'm turning this into a Trello card is because if our product failed with women and minorities, there would be a Trello card to deal with that for the next UX person and the product people, and everybody would be on it and make sure that the problem is solved. There would be multiple solutions in production with A/B tests in a month. We do have a failing product. The product just happens to be the positions that we cannot fill. It exists. It's being rejected massively by a massive group of people. So what are we doing wrong? So let's start with the biggest funnel. We're on to the Trillo card. Everybody complains that they don't get CVs from women. They're simply not applying. So you probably heard about this one. A highly quoted Hewlett-Packard report revealed that women don't apply to jobs unless they meet 100% of the criteria, whereas men, only 60%. Well, this fact, it's probably not scientific, because there's no 100% in any serious research ever. And it's a big clue there. It's an internet fact sort of gone viral. However, there seems to be some consensus in the industry that that women truly don't apply as easily to jobs as men. And there have been real studies suggesting also that men overestimate their skills a little bit, as well as don't doubt themselves as much. So let's assume for a second that there's a real, what is called confidence gap, and try to find out where it's coming from, what we can do about it. So Tara Sophia Moore decided to ask men and women, if you decided not to apply for a job because you didn't meet all the qualifications, why didn't you apply? And her results were published in Harvard Business Review, and they're interesting. So she gave them 5 options to choose from. We're just going to read them quickly. I didn't think they would hire me since I didn't meet all the qualifications. I didn't want to waste my time and energy. I didn't think they would hire me since I didn't meet all the qualifications, and I didn't want to put myself out there in case I fail. I was being respectful of the time and preferences of the person reviewing applications. They had already made clear who they were looking for. I didn't think I could do the job well, and I was following the guidelines of who should apply. So finally, in this talk, I have some good news. The least common answer for women is marked right here, is I didn't think I could do the job well. It's very similar to men's, which is 12.4% versus 9.7%. But there is probably a margin of error that was not published, but let's rejoice in that for a second. So Moore explains, and I have to say that most of her conclusions on some of the other results I disagree with. I think they're not statistically significant as the data that she's relying on. However, this I do agree with. People who weren't applying believed they needed the qualifications, not to do the job well, but to be hired in the first place. They thought that the required qualifications were, well, required. So this is critical because it suggests that if the HP findings speak to a larger trend, women just need better information about how the hiring process works. So now, to be completely fair, we cannot say for sure that they were confident they could do the job well. We just know that they didn't apply because they didn't because they didn't think, well, you get what I'm saying. So the options are not mutually exclusive. Also, there wasn't a multiple choice there. But in the troubleshooting world, this is what we would call a lead. And we would act on it. We would do something with it. So let's explore options. So Women Who Code has solved this problem by limiting job postings to the size of a tweet on their board. They basically assume the more you write, the more wrong you're going to get it. Which, could work. Maybe we should do it. I propose a few other solutions. So eliminate everything that can be learned in 2 days or even a week, mostly technologies, that are very easy to pick up. Because if the applicant doesn't know the technology, they don't know necessarily how easy it is to learn. And then they're just not applying, and that's a shame. It's not what we want. We also have the option of experimenting. So post multiple ads with multiple profiles and see who applies to what. So thirdly, we've accumulated a bunch of CVs. Not all of them match 100% of your criteria. So narrow down the position's qualification to the least common denominator of the applicants that you're currently considering. And then repost the ad. Because now you know better what profile you're looking for. You can also do that with your existing team if you have one. Just look at them. Find out what they had when they came in to work for you, and use that. Lastly, and this is not proven, but a lot of people stay away from those superlatives. So you should probably think of getting rid of all the superlatives. Killer programmer is pretty obvious, but what about ninja or rockstar? They're really necessary. People may not apply because of them, but show me one person who decided not to apply because those superlatives were missing. So while we're on the topic of confidence, I think it's being addressed disproportionately to the actual problem. The imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, all of these are well documented and discussed very often as if we just fixed confidence, everything will just work out. So we've already seen that women with higher education, the more higher education they have, they seem to drop out faster, or more, sorry, I don't know if it's faster, that was not in the report. So lack of confidence is probably not a determinator in this case. So second, I personally would love to have bosses and colleagues around who doubt themselves a little bit more, I have to say. I don't know about you. But most importantly, I've not found a single research showing that if they applied, they'd actually get the job. So what if women statistically are not likely to get a job with the infamous 60% of the qualifications? What if women simply are required to be better to get ahead? And what if when a woman asks for a similar salary to a man's, they won't get the job at all? In short, what if they're right? What if what we're seeing is a mere reflection of reality in how people behave? I mean, people experiment all the time to see what they can get. What if this is what people were taught to think they can get out of life? And I know we all think that we're the one good employer. We are. We do not discriminate. But how does she, the applicant, how is she supposed to know that? So let's talk about degrees for a second. Most ads begin with a bachelor's degree. There's a real problem with that. So we know that there's discrimination in the education system towards all underrepresented groups, people of color, LGBTQ, everybody, women. Campuses are not safe for women. Young girls are silenced more in class worldwide. It's an epidemic, really. So we're internalizing a problem, and we do not have to play this game. So if we're to reconsider everything that we're doing, maybe we want to look into that also. And lastly, since women leave tech in masses, and we now know that. Maybe, a second ago you didn't know that, but now I told you and you do. If we're actively looking for a senior person, we're not likely to find and fill that position with a woman. Probably not. They're just not enough. So we have to grow them ourselves. It's up to us as a community. I'm not going to tell you what to do with this. Sorry. Maybe you do need seniors. Maybe, but it's impossible that all companies all the time require seniors. Because we have a serious problem here where women cannot look up to anybody because there are no women in leadership positions because nobody's growing them there. Now, I wish at that point that I could tell you anything about any of the other underrepresented groups that I mentioned. In this case, about this topic, I can't because there is really not enough data. So next item on our Trillo card is defining goals to our recruiters. So especially if you're using external recruiters, you must set some expectations. External recruiters are paid a margin. So if they think a man is more likely to get hired, they will send you men. If they think a man is going to make more money, they will send you men. It's not in their best interest to look for women unless you tell them to. So you must create some incentive for them to encourage diversity. So whether you're using internal or external, you can define some quotas on the amounts of CVs that you want. And this will allow you to see exactly what kind of CVs you could if you did that. So to see what kind of people they were passing over. Maybe they're not good enough. Maybe they really don't meet the qualifications. Maybe that's not the profile that you're looking for. But at least then you'll know. Back to our Trillo card. So go to meetups. Find your applicants where they are. There are tons of meetups for diversity groups. When I started organizing Women Go Berlin, I didn't just sit around and waited for women to come to my meetup because nobody would show up. I went everywhere to find them, women who code, women tech makers, geek Garrett girls, and I was very annoying. And I, unlike you, didn't have money to pay them to learn Go, and I still got them to do it. So you can, pay them, and that would be probably more convincing. Next on our list is coding challenges. So they started with the thought that you might overlook someone because they don't have the experience you were looking for. It's very nice. So there was supposed to be a way to allow applicants to sort of surprise you, to shine, to show you who they are, and it's a fine idea, it really is. Except companies are now sending challenges out that take weeks to complete, and we really, really need to rethink this. And this is why. So this is true to all parents probably, but especially women, and especially to mothers with babies. A young working mother can maybe allocate 4 to 5 hours a week. I created my own survey in a women's group at some point to make sure, to complete a challenge. And she's probably applying to other places as well. So if your challenge can't be completed in 4 to 5 hours, and I mean real life 4 to 5 hours, not t-shirt sizes or I don't know what you use where you are, you have probably no business sending it anywhere. So I'll take it a step further though, because you might be thinking right now like, phew, ours only takes 2 hours, we're fine. But if you send the challenge out with the intention of seeing who shines, who stands out, whose solution is best, that is a function of time and effort, and our young working mother cannot compete. In short, challenges might turn out to be a competition over who has the most time and resources, basically. And those would be younger people with no commitments. So consider this. People are more likely to have children after a few years in the industry, after they've sort of built, a career. So we might be eliminating people in the primes of their careers. Now, I'd love to see them gone completely, but if you must send out challenges, sort of do the right thing. Invite your applicants for a cup of coffee. Ask them 1 to 2 technical questions. You can do this over the phone. See that there is at least some chemistry, and that they're really, and allow them to find out if they're really interested in the position, so that they don't waste their time. Our next item on the list is, of course, retention. which should probably be the biggest thing that we should be investing our time on, because as we saw, people are leaving tech, and we're looking for seniors. So it kind of, doesn't work. So let's return our hires, because we're not going to achieve anything otherwise. Code reviews are a great way to build or destroy teams. So make sure to have constructive code review processes. Training, education, budget, and conferences. We see this everywhere. Conferences constantly have to allocate diversity tickets to underrepresented groups. And then people like me distribute them. So please, I'm begging you, make this part of my job obsolete, because it is difficult. I haven't slept in 2 years. Define clear paths to promotion. So give your employees a real sense of opportunity. So here's the promise teller card with all the ideas that I just explained. This is not everything, and you might come up with your own ideas as well. And if you do, I would love to know about them, so please tweet me. And share a tweet, tell your friends and recruiters and your managers, and be brave. And thank you very much. And have a great second day of the conference tomorrow. Now, I think I'm supposed to be taking questions, but I think we don't have time, right? You have a boat at 6. Okay, so, I'll be around if anybody wants to talk. So, yeah, see you later.